What's up guys, this is Jake.
What's going on? This is Seb.
We are at La Croix Adrenaline Factory today to make a little tutorial on how to install the Falcon Gear Drive. We just released a new version of it. Well, pretty much it's just some modification from the previous generation we released. And we will show you how to install it. So Seb, what is the major difference between the first generation and the second one?
Well, the main modification, it's pretty much we tried to remove the big bearing. In some cases, it was giving us issues. It would get super loud, it would pop out, therefore not giving much of a seal. So we pretty much removed it completely. We modified the case a little, and we're installing this new SKF seal, which gives a much better seal overall, sounds a lot better, it's a lot quieter, and it makes the Falcon sound super smooth. So that's pretty much the main difference that we have now on the Falcon.
Awesome, so let's get down to business.
Yeah, let's get it done, man.
But first, what are the tools we will need, Seb?
All the tools we need pretty much are over here. First, we have 19mm socket, 22mm socket for the axles.
22mm socket for the axles.
Then we will need all the usual keys, 2.5mm, 3mm, 4, 6, 4mm screwdriver, and a small drill comes in handy. It's not fully necessary, but if you have one, it comes in very handy. Nothing too strong because we don't want to strip screws, we don't want to mess anything up. So if you have a small, weak drill, good. If not, do it by hand. So with the drill, 3mm and 2.5mm. Also, we will need high strength Loctite. We will need the 680 Loctite, liquid Loctite, and some grease. We use the grease gun. Grease gun is not necessary. You could do it by hand, but it comes in handy if you have one. So that's pretty much all the tools we will need.
All right, so we're good to go?
Yes, we are, man.
All right.
This is pretty much all you will need. Start by the beginning. You will need the gear cases, one for each side, motor mounting plates, one for left, one for right. You will need the gears, 14T, 59T. These are bearings and C-clips to go inside the 59T. You will need longer axles, 146mm with the axle spacers. You will need the motor mounting disc, one for each side, elliptic ring, one for each side, wheel adapter with the SKF seal that goes onto the wheel adapter. You will need the screws M4 by 16 to mount your motors. These are M4 by 20 to fix your wheels and also for the gear case. These are for your back wheels, M4 by 55mm, M5 by 8mm to adjust your motors, M12 nuts, and M3 by 6 for the gear case also. So this is pretty much all you will need for your installation.
Okay, Seb, I think we're good to go. So what's the first step?
All right, so now that your belt drive has been removed, we will need to remove all the short axles to accommodate for the long axles. This is when your 22mm key comes in handy. Now those might be, they might be quite tight, so you will need to give it some juice. If you can't remove them, try heating with the heat gun. Sometimes it will diffuse the high strength Loctite and it will help a lot.
Okay, Seb, nice. First step done. What's next?
All right, so now that we remove the short axles, we will install the long 146mm axle. We use the high strength Loctite. Apply just a little at the end of the axle. Pop that thing in. Sometimes you might need a soft hammer to smash it in. Sometimes they come right in. Do the other side. All right, finish them up with the key. All right, so next we'll be installing the motor plates. For the motor plates, you will need the M8 by 12. I didn't mention them at the beginning, They will come on your old belt drive. You could reuse the same screws, and they would also come in the package, so whatever you want you could use. Pop them in. Now there's one for each side. You could see that the slot for the wire is one for each side. Slot goes on the top, so this one is gonna go on the right side of your board. This one is on the left side. Again, we apply some high strength Loctite to every screw. Again, not too much, no point going excessive because we might want to remove them one day.
Okay, Seb, perfect. So we've been installing the axle. After that, the plate. What's next?
Next is the little O-rings that will be inserted at the end of your motor plate. Just slide them in, fairly simple, nothing too hard about it. All right, we go around it, make sure it's all well inserted so it won't cause obstruction when we install the case. So there it is, looking good.
Okay, Seb, so we have installed the axle, the case, the O-ring. What's next?
Next, we will install the 59 teeth POM. Before we install it, we need to pop in the bearings using the C-clip pliers. We pop the bearing in, one in each. Put your reverse C-clip into the hole. Use the pliers and pop that guy in. It should really come into the groove. So when it's in the groove, you know that it's well secured into place. All right, so there it is, well secured. C-clip is in the groove, bearing is well secured in. So now we'll be ready to pop him into the axle. That's it, simple enough. Just slide them in.
Easy like that.
Easy like that. Maybe try wiggle. Sometimes they're a little hard to get in. Wiggle from side to side. There we go, one's in. Again, might require a little wiggle. There it is, they're both in there.
Bam, easy peasy.
Next, motors.
Okay, Seb, so now that we put the Pom Gear, so what's next?
Next, we have to install the motor disc onto the motor. So, simple enough, there is a groove onto the motor disc. This is to line up with the wires. So, line it up. We grab the M4 by 16 millimeter keys. We can use some high strength Loctite. And just pop those guys in. Sometimes it'll be a bit tricky to line up at the beginning, but usually it'll go fairly well. Fairly tight. We don't want to go too tight, not to strip the screws. All right, one's done.
Okay, Seb, so now that we have our motor ready, I guess we just need to put them on the plate, right?
Yeah, that's it. And we'll be using the elliptic ring. Now, what the elliptic ring does is it allows you to adjust the tightness in between the pulleys. So first we'll pop this guy into the groove for the motor. Now there's a little adjustment hole that we use here. The hole will go in towards the opposite screw of the wire slot. So there's the screw on the side of the wire slot, and there's the opposite one. So we'll just line it up with the opposite one. Now the key, obviously the wire will go towards the wire slot. On the disc, there's four little tabs. Four little tabs will go onto the four little holes. They should go right in. Takes a little wiggle sometimes to adjust, so make sure your wires are at the right place. Usually it will tell you that you're close enough to your adjustment. So there you go. Now our tabs are in. You just hold it tight. We will need the M6, M5 by 8 millimeter with the little flat washer. Set it up. All we really want right now is just to pop one in so the whole setup holds by itself. All right, use your M4 screwdriver, tighten it. There's no point tightening like crazy because we need to adjust them. So we go all the way at the end and we come back maybe half a turn to give it a little slack. Now we can go and install the two other ones. Now those screws are 3 on each side. So you'll have 6 screws and 6 washers in your setup. These don't require any Loctite because we want to be able to adjust them on demand. So there it is, motor is there.
Okay, let's start the second one, Seb.
All right, so we install the elliptic ring. Again, adjustment hole lined up with the bottom hole of the plate. Now we have the 4 tabs on the motor disc that should line up with the 4 holes onto the plate. Line up the wires with the wire slot. Right, so there you are, motors are installed, they're still loose, so we can adjust them. All right, next step will be to install the 14T pulley. Now to install the 14T pulley, ideally, we'll just remove this one, we'll put it aside for now. You don't need to remove it completely. You could just leave it hanging if you want, but it's also good to remove it so you have more room to work. Apply just a bit of Loctite at the end of the shaft.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Grab your 14T and push that sucker in all the way to the end.
Okay, we finally put the 14 teeth in. So what's next step?
Next, we're gonna put the 59 tooth back in. We have to be kind of gentle with it because it's just POM material, so we don't want to smack the steel pulley too hard, therefore damaging it. So I'm gonna try to go gently right in. There we go, a little wiggle. There we go.
Okay, so I guess we do the same thing on the other side.
Yeah, that's it. Wiggle it in. There we go, we're in.
Okay, Seb, this is the most important moment. We will adjust the little backslash. So how do we do it?
Pretty much we have to use the 2.5 millimeter key and we go onto the little hole of the elliptic ring we saw earlier. Now by spinning the elliptic ring, we'll adjust the tightness in between the pulleys. What we're looking for is just a bit of space in between. Not too much, not too little. We don't want the pulleys to be tight or else they'll just eat away. And if they're too loose, same thing, they'll just eat away after time. You see how it is now? We're kind of lucky. It seems to be adjusted to the right thing. So we'll just tighten our screws and see if, because when we tighten the screws, sometimes the adjustment will move a little. So we tighten our screws. We see if we have, you see, now it's much bigger than it was earlier. So we'll go back, we untighten them and we'll adjust a little. Because when it's loose and when it's tight, sometimes they'll move just a little hair, enough to change your adjustment. So we use a 2.5 millimeter key. We go onto the elliptic ring hole, which is going to be at the bottom. Now what we want to do, if we want to go closer, we go towards us. If we want to go further, we go towards in. So now I just want to go a little bit closer. So we'll just make it spin a little. Check by hand. Seems to be a little too tight now. You see, there's no more wiggle. So we'll go back, bring it back just a little. Okay.
All right, Seb, it seems perfect now.
Yeah, you see we have just a little, you can hear it. There's definitely a little movement, not too much. There you go, so we're at the right place. Now we go and tighten our 3 screws. Okay, we make sure that we kept the same spacing. There you are, that's a nice backlash. We will take our 4mm key and just secure the screws properly. There we go. Now we will repeat the same process on the other side. Now that we have the perfect backlash, everything is secured in, our pulleys are secured. Now we just need to grease this thing up.
Little glove.
Little glove always comes in handy. Again, we use the grease gun. You do not need a grease gun. You could just apply it by hand, but for us, it comes in much easier. So we'll just go all the way around, apply some.
Okay, so let's close the Falcon Gear Drive.
Yeah, we'll just spread the grease properly before we close it.
Oh, sure.
Make sure it's all even everywhere. All right, now that that's done, we are ready to close it up. Our O-ring is inserted. Just line it up. Try to line it up properly, or else we'll just spread grease all over the place. Pop right in. Now for the neck, to screw it in, we will need the M3x12s, 6 total, 3 on each side, and we will need the M4x20s, 4 totals, 2 on each side. One at the bottom. All right, M2.5 on the drill. We'll tighten these guys up. The final tightening is always done by hand, so you get full control. This one might be easier we'll just do this one by hand because it's hard to reach with the drill. We'll switch bit for the 2 other ones. M3. Okay, we'll start by the bottom one. Alright, so to save time, we already disassembled the 72T for the belt drive. We removed it, so now we'll just insert the Falcon wheel adapter. Simple enough, it's the same wheel screws, M4x55mm. We'll just pop that guy in, pop the 5 screws in, and screw it in. Again, always use the star pattern.
Bam, the case is there. So I guess we just need to pull back the wheel, right?
Yeah, that's it. We need to install the wheel. Now this is when we install that new SKF seal instead of the bearing. So the SKF is inserted right onto the wheel adapter. There's the groove around here, so we're just gonna slide it in. It needs to be stretched a little. There we go. We make sure that it's pushed in all the way so there's no gaps on the side. All right, SKF seal is in. Now we want to apply just a tiny minimal amount of grease onto the inner side of the seal, so we have grease in between the case and the SKF. All right, so we'll just little tiny amount at the end of your finger and just apply just onto the side of the SKF.
Do you have any recommendations, Seb, for the grease?
Grease doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's lithium-based grease.
Classic.
That's it.
All right.
All right, so now that we have the SKF onto the wheel adapter, we applied a bit of grease, we're ready to pop it in. Line it up. Easiest way is just spin it like that, the bearings and the spacers line up. It'll go in. Now we need to look through the hub to make sure that all your screw holes line up. We'll just look through, make sure that the 5 screw holes line up. Now we could put the M12 nut in. We'll hold it into place. 19 millimeter. Alright, so we're tight into place. Now we will use the M4 by 20 millimeter. We still have 10 left, 5 for each side. It's good to use a long screwdriver or a long bit because we need to go through the hubs to screw them in.
Obviously, if we want to take care of our Falcon Gear Drive, we need to put a little bit of grease here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, when we do the installation, we apply the grease before we close it up, but for maintenance, you could always go through the grease hole. It's much easier. You go with a syringe and just pump some grease in there. So there it is, Falcon Gear Drive, fully assembled, functioning. We'll run it so you can see what that beautiful thing sounds like.
Okay guys, so that was it for the Falcon Gear Drive. We hope it was clear enough so you can do the same thing at home. If you still have some questions, please drop it in the comments and we'll make sure to answer them as soon as possible. Otherwise,
that's it guys. Put your helmet on and let's go riding. Enjoy.
All right, take care guys.
Ciao guys.